There is breathing in and breathing out, a living organism. Let us inhabit in-breathing and out-breathing as though our lives depended upon it. The human mind generates thoughts, creates imaginary futures. Imagine what it believes it remembers of a past. So it's important that we remain open to the fact of thinking. And thinking may be so subtle that an incipient thought is noticed in 1/10 of a second, even before it fully forms. Or there's a wandering mind that lasts 10 minutes. Ultimately, though, awareness reasserts itself. There's knowing, oh, that's thinking. Nothing more than that is needed. Just come back to now, come back to the present, come back to this breath. How many days now have we met here in Zoom land? 80, 90? Where are we getting to? Just here. And so let us attend with gentleness and firmness and clarity persistence, devotion. Let us attend to the rising and falling of the chest and abdomen, or the sensations at the nostrils as the air comes and goes. Open to everything that happens. Notice how there is a kind of falling into trance. We somehow identify with one of those stories. It becomes real. In this instance, because we're sitting here with the intention of awakening, there is waking up in the middle of the story. There's a moment of freedom. Oh, thinking, wandering. Maybe we fall into one of the 5 hindrances. The hindrances to awakeness and seeing, knowing. The hindrance of wanting something, or wanting something not. Lust and hate. The trance of restlessness, agitation, and worry. The trance of sleepy dullness. sloth and torpor. The trance of doubt. Doubt in oneself, doubt in the practice. Does this even do anything? Or we fall into the trance of one of the emotions. We're captured by depression or anxiety or fear, elation. None of these trances signify failure. They signify life. And we are life awakening to itself. time and again, with great love and compassion. We do this ultimate human act. Wake up. Participate in the evolution of consciousness. We practice being awake, mindfulness. We practice spiritual discipline, doing that which we really, 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 really want to do. In these moments, we live lightly on the earth. We consume no resources. We cause no problems. We bring awareness into the human mind. With a mind that is clarified by stopping and sitting, we can then become good cultivators. We practice bhavana, B-H-A-V-A-N-A, which is translated as meditate. But its meaning is cultivation, like to cultivate a garden. And with the mind that we can see, that we know, of which we are aware, we can then choose what our crops are. Do we plant another crop of anxiety? Another crop of fearfulness or jealousy? Why not plant a crop of generosity, of contentment, of great ease? Why not formulate intentions deep in our cognitive process, intentions to become more mindful in every daily activity, more attentive in every human interaction? And let us this morning practice the great fundamental mantra, I love you, with your own name at the end. I love you, I promise to take care of you. You might also think of yourself at any age. Was there an age, was there a moment when you needed care you didn't receive? Maybe when you needed protection you didn't receive. Why not reassure that part of yourself? I won't let that happen again. For years I practiced some loving kindness phrases. May I be happy. May I be free from fear and danger. May I live with ease and grace. May I be liberated. And then went on to extend this to others. Quite some time ago, decades, I added a fifth. Bobby, I'll never abandon you again. What is it you've always, always, always wanted to hear? Why not provide it to yourself now? I love you with your name at the end. And think of someone that is easy to love and safe to love. Perhaps someone who's alive now, or maybe someone who already died. Or maybe it's a pet. Imagine them. Imagine surrounding them with golden or white light. May you be happy. May you be free from fear and danger. May you live with ease and grace. May you be liberated. And extending this outwards now to friends, neighbors, people in this group. In fact, all the way outward to all beings, to include the very powerful, the powerless, the wealthy and the poorest, those who are being born in this moment and those who are dying. As a mother protects her child, her only child, extending our loving wishes in all directions to all beings, without distinction. And in this way we soften, we melt, we lie back into the arms of the universe, into our true nature. And please now come home to your body as it sits here. Take note of how the mind is. Expansive, contracted, content, wanting, anxious, tranquil. Noticing where your body presses against the chair or the cushion. If you're leaning, where your back touches the chair. And now bringing awareness into the eyes and the face. And notice what's required to prepare to open the eyes. And then make that intention, operationalize that intention. And rather suddenly they're seeing, there are objects, colors, shapes, forms. What a delight to open my eyes and find you here. How did you get into my tent? How did you get into the backyard without the dogs barking? I have a few announcements. Jim, are you on this Saturday? Can't hear you. Can other?
Saturday, at least in the Pacific time zone, and we'll be there till 1 o'clock. We'll be exploring mindfulness of movement, some poetry, and some time to just sit and be still. So join me at 9 o'clock if you wish. There's a section of the first page of the PortlandInsight.org that has the link to accept Jiva to find the Zoom connection. Thank you.
I thought I had that very page up, but maybe I don't. No. Other announcements. We have a wonderful new addition to our PIMC teaching cadre in the form of Candle. And Candle is going to be, she's been practicing for decades and with training with Kamala Masters and Stephen Armstrong in Hawaii. And she's trying to figure out when she will do it, but she's going to start offering a gathering at PIMC. And one thing that is clear is that on Saturday, the 1st of August, mark your calendar, we're doing a retreat, sort of a traditional retreat in a way, from 9 to 2 or 9 to 3, sitting and walking meditation. So that's something nice to look forward to. I'd like to also remind you of the great importance of supporting PIMC financially. If you're not a monthly contributor, I encourage you to do that. Go to portlandinsight.org. I had it all queued up and lost it. Go to portlandinsight.org and you can easily find the link. It's a few boxes down. And it's a way of really being generous to the world, because just as this has, in so many cases, transformed our lives, your lives, keeping the doors open and everything humming along is an invitation to others to practice and transform their lives. And Alicia, I think you're here. There she is, I think.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, my dear.
Hi, everyone. Just a reminder that our campaign to create a remote broadcasting site from Robert's home is still ongoing. I have posted all of the information to chat, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier, but I did just try typing in PIMC to GoFundMe, and it pulls up our campaign page. So,
oh, that's easy.
Don't
Great.
have the link to follow. Just type in PIMC to the GoFundMe site, and you'll find us. And as you can see, we're actually 2/3 of the way toward our goal. So thank you again, everybody, for your generosity. It's so appreciated. And I'm reminded every day why I'm so grateful for this Sangha, for all of you. So if you feel the same and are able, please support these ongoing gatherings. And of course, please also remember to support PIMC directly.
Thank you, Alicia. I was just drawn into the chat. Christopher wrote, "Your wife may make you live in that if you're not careful." Well, they're better than a tent in November, December, and January. Thank you for that. Funny. So, any questions, dear friends? What's happening for you this morning? Thank you, Alicia. Your kind gentleness is always really appreciated by me. Questions, comments, sharing.
Good morning, Robert and Sangha. This is Barbara in Briar, Washington.
Hello, Barbara.
Hi there. I guess I just want to do a little bit of sharing in that my granddaughter, Grace, is on her way right now to Boston Children's Hospital. And she will have a procedure there. Her little esophagus is not wide enough. She was born with this condition and has had a couple of surgeries, including one 12-hour surgery and 3 weeks in ICU at Boston Children's. So we are hopeful that this time they will be able to simply dilate her esophagus, and that she will be home in Edmonds, Washington with her family soon.
What is her name?
Her name is Grace.
And how old is she?
She just turned 2.
Whew.
She's an amazing little girl and mostly very happy. And everything is mine.
And no, I bet.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's age appropriate. So, well, let us hold her in our hearts. She's on her way right now.
Yes, she's on the plane with her mom, daughter to Boston.
Well, let's hold you in our hearts too, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
There are so many profound reminders of the fragility of our lives. So many reminders that practice is so important.
Hey, Robert.
Hello.
Hello.
It's Christopher. Hello.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on the importance of sticking with one teacher. I'm starting out my journey on this path, and I've been finding myself joining this group, that group, going all over the place. And I hear from a lot of people that they have one teacher that they've trained with for so many years, or have been taught by for so many years. And yeah, I guess, what do you, and then I was looking at, oh, wow, wouldn't it be cool to become a teacher at some point?
Mm-hmm.
And then you need recommendations and somebody that maybe you practice with consistently for a long time or a couple years. And I thought, well, oh no, like, do I have to go out and find one person, one one group and stick with it? And can I do that? I guess what are the benefits of sticking with one person, or are there benefits as opposed to seeking out what calls to you at all times?
That's a really important question. My own experience was that I had my teacher Goenka in India, and then I got involved with a man named Sujata who was in Santa Cruz, who actually was quite a sick man. He had a narcissistic personality disorder, and he was running a cult. And I got very involved there for 6 years, actually, all told. I set up a lecture tour for him in Europe in 10 different cities where I'd lived. I'd lived in Europe for several years. And then I did retreats with Joseph Goldstein and Jack Kornfield, the kind of the national people. And then I was on I went to visit a great Burmese master, Tangpulu Sayadaw, who I had spent a week with in Burma. And while I was there, this German woman came in with a bee sting in her hand, and we started talking, and it turned out that she was Ruth Dennison, and I knew her name. And our first conversation was 6 hours, and we talked out by her minivan, her little camper, and then I spent the next 40 years with her, really very much as my teacher, and then my friend, colleague, teacher. And then in the end, I was responsible for her care and was there when she died. And so I'm a great believer in long-term relationships like that. But the reason for it, as I make sense of it, is so much healing happens in relationship. And to have someone with whom we establish a relationship who then gets to know us, and then we get to go through our life crises and so on, and we have someone who knows us and can help us when we go particularly crazy. There was a time when Ruth Dennison stayed up all night with me. I was on retreat with her, and she stayed up all night and baked apples in a fireplace, and she kept calling me back to sanity. I was freaking out over something, and I'd start freaking out, and she'd clap her hands and say, "Wake up, you're hallucinating." I'd say, "Well, this thing is happening somewhere else," and she'd say, "Is it happening? Can you see it? Do you know that it's real?" And so that was a devotion to her relationship with me, that she took me seriously. And so it's not so much to get a recommendation, it's to change our lives. And so one thing that I feel quite strongly about is having a teacher is really very useful. And having a practice that we do for 5 to 10 years is particularly useful. Because, at first you're excited, and then it's terrific, and you read some books, and boy, this is really the practice. And then you get bored. And then, well, I think I'd rather have another serving of strawberry shortcake, and I want to go over there. And then you never get a chance to be with the boredom, and you don't get a chance to go through the blockages that are coming up that make that practice boring at that time. And so I'm a strong believer in that. And I have had other teachers, and I was married to a Sufi teacher for a while, so I did a Sufi ordination, and I went to those retreats with her and my kids for a while. And so I've had, I have had other teachers during and after Ruth Denison. But I guess the thing is, if we try to do it all ourselves, by ourselves, we inevitably wind up stuck in a box, which is of, this is what I understand, this is the way the world is, this is the way I perceive it, and we don't have someone close who can point out. An example of that, I was on a retreat with Stephen Levine, now deceased, but a long time ago. It's very long ago. My son is 36, and he was 7 months old at the time of this. But Stephen did these retreats where people brought their anguish, and a woman shared at Brighton Bush. A woman shared the abduction, rape, and killing of her daughter, and she was sobbing, and other people in the room were sobbing, and it touched the place in me, and I was sobbing, and it seemed very normal to me. And that evening, Ruth Denison and I were visiting, and she said, "Darling, what were you doing in that room, in the Dharma hall today?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, when that woman shared her story. And I said, "Well, I was crying," and I got a little defensive. And she suggested, and I asked, "What else could I have done?" And she said, "Well, you might experiment the next time when you're there at that point and the decision is made to go into that deep sobbing, try not going there." And I had the opportunity the next day, and what I discovered was that was a habit, and I could go much deeper into compassion if I didn't go into my emotional response to their story. And would I ever have discovered that on my own? I don't know. But it was one of those moments of, in the Zen stories, there's the whack, or the clap of lightning that wakes a person up. And so I had quite a few of those with Ruth, where she saw me doing something and was able to really intervene in a way that I could trust. So I guess I'm a strong believer, clearly, in long-term relationship with teachers, at least some relatedness. And, you start off and you never know how long it will last. It might be a year, it might be 6 months, it might be one meeting or two. But I believe this journey is so profound that we really need our elders to help us along the way. That useful?
Yeah, that's really useful, and thank you for sharing your experiences. It sounds like there is benefit to having multiple teachers, but there is a very strong benefit in sticking with one teacher through a period of time that can learn your everything, your mannerisms, your thought patterns, your processes, the way you process things, and that you don't know when you're starting out with somebody how long that relationship will last.
Right.
But you can be okay with it, and follow it.
I've had, in addition to Ruth, 7, I don't know, 6 maybe, really significant psychotherapy relationships. I was 13 years with one man, and 12 years with a woman. And at first I met with them weekly, and then it went to longer. But these were relationships where, in fact, they loved me and I loved them, and the purpose of it was my waking up. And so I'm very much a believer in. I'm a believer in having elders.
Yeah, and I think I'm very much a person that wants to figure it out myself and create my own curriculum or sort
Right.
of thing. So, what you said really resonates with me, and something that I need to look into myself for as well.
Well, many of us had not such great relationships with our elders when we were really little. And so our model, could you mute your iPhone, please, whoever that is? Huh. Oh, it is muted now, I guess. So we shy away from relationships with elders because we presume they're going to be as grim as our childhood, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
And we have our kind of separated sometimes. It's like some people think if you spend $5,000 it's a whole new vehicle. Sometimes separating that is very. Yeah.
Are you still there?
No, and let me see if I have.
Well, let me come back to the gallery. I think that's... I'm going to try something else here. Isn't the technology grand? There. So thanks for that question. Very useful one. You know, when Ruth died, which is just a few years ago now, I was her executor, and aside from that, the important part was it was a lot of responsibility near the end of her life, and I did quite a few trips suddenly down to the desert and outside of Palm Springs, and as it is taking care of an elder with all of their various issues as they approach the end of their life, sometimes it was sort of burdensome, and I didn't predict at all how monumental Ruth's death would be for me. That it was actually, I was more, I was more internally destabilized by her death than I was by my parents' death. Because in my parents' case, I had been grieving them and the loss of them and the fact that in some ways they never were there. I'd been grieving them for a long time, and so the major grief with both of my parents was, and I feel it now as I talk about it, was, oh no, I'm never, ever going to have the intimacy in that relationship that I wanted and that I tried for, and that it's just never going to happen because now they're gone. I can't make another trip with the hope of maybe this time we'll be able to connect. That was over. That was the loss. But with Ruth, I kind of went into the dark I was pretty dysfunctional actually for maybe 3 months. I functioned, I did my thing, and I was responsible professionally, and I continued my teaching. But it was such an important relationship that her passing was also a great gift, in that it illuminated all that inside me. I'm thinking of an experience I had with her about a year before she died. I went down. She wanted to make her funeral arrangements, and among the things we did was we went to the mortuary where we had the service, and she wanted to see the crematorium, and we went there. But sitting in the hall where ultimately we had her ceremony, she was sitting on my right. She was very tiny at this point. She got shrunk as she got older, and we were holding hands, and I said, this is really a setup, you know, because I'm here, sitting here with you, and the next time I'm in this room, you'll be dead. And in a box up there. She said, well, that will be a fine teaching of impermanence, won't it? And it was. Incidentally, and I don't know, I have to get this Ruth's website back together, but we did video with this very camera. Actually, we did fine video recording of Ruth's memorial service, the first one in Yucca Valley, and it's worth a watch. I'll see if I can't. I'll check and see if it's there and see if we can get it up soon. Because it's her next generation teachers and the monks from Abhayagiri, and it's really a very beautiful happening that occurred. So I wish every one of us that quality of relationship, so that we can really get to know ourselves and each other. Well, it's 8:07. Is anybody got something you'd like to ask or speak before we end? Scanning the frames. If you do, please unmute yourself and just speak. Yeah, I will look up that ceremony. I know exactly where I think I do, where the recordings are. There's so much stuff to keep track of. A question. Sherry. Hi.
Hi. How does one establish that kind of relationship with a teacher when you're distant?
Well, kind of like we're doing right now. Hi, Sherry. I see you.
But when you have an issue, and we all have those, when you have a very deep and important issue that you need to work through, I'm not going to come on the morning meditation and take up everyone's time with my problems. So how does one do that? It needs to be on retreat, right?
No, you could send me an email and we could make a date to be together and we could be together. I mean, it's not the same as in person, but I spend a chunk of most of my days actually meeting with students on Zoom.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's an incredible privilege on my part, and we get to know each other.
Thank you.
Robert@robertbeatty.com is the portal. Well, I think it's time to move on. Tomorrow morning is going to be interesting here. I don't think it will have any impact on you, but at 5:45, two fellas are coming. They're making a documentary about how I moved to the tent and we kept the community going through this medium, and they're going to be here when the Tough Shed arrives, and also they want to be at PIMC when we first make our re-entry to there. So they're coming early. I moved my desk back as far as I could here because one of them intends to be over there with a camera to record this recording process, this broadcast process. Kind of fun. They're lovely men, very fine documentary makers. Okay, let's sing. Thank you all for coming. Unmute all. Any kids out there? May all beings be happy. Yes, there are. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a lovely day, my friends. Let's remember to be mindful. Goodbye.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Thanks for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Bye, Alicia. Thanks again. Here we go.
Coming and going like waves on the shore. There is
Goodbye, dear friends on YouTube and Facebook. I hope you too have a wonderful day. Sorry for